Let's build a simple REST API by using Axum, Sqlite database, and CRUD. First, let's go to cargo.toml file. In cargo.toml file, we need to add some dependencies: Tokyo for asynchronous runtime, 30 and 30 JSON for serialize and deserialize JSON, and Axum for backend server, CRM to interact with Sqlite database. Features, we add SQLX, Sqlite. In SRC folder, let's define a new file. Let's give it a name todo.rs. In this file, we will define a model for to-do item. Let's add this todo.rs file as a module to our project. So in main.rs file, we will add a mod to-do. In todo.rs file, let's first import use CRM prelude asterisk. Then let's define a public structure for model. So structure, its name needed to be uppercase model. Let's add two fields for this model. First field, let's give the name ID. Type, give it ISO2. Second field, give the name content. Let's give it a type string. Then we need to add an attribute for this structure model. We'll add a derive colon partial equal and equal derive entity model default and serialize. We add a serialize, so later we can serialize this struct type to JSON. Then let's add another attribute, CRM, to specify the table name for this model in database. So we add a table name equal to to-dos. Let's also add an attribute for this ID field to specify this ID is primary key. So CRM primary key. Then we need to define a relation type for this model. So let's define a public enum type. Its name needed to be relation. We will add no relations to its model, so we leave this field as empty. Then we need to add an attribute derive colon enum iter derive relation. Then we also need to implement active model behavior for its active model for active model. Then let's go back to main.rs file. Let's define a struct type. Let's give the name to-do request. We will use this struct type to get the user input content from request body. So we add one field, content, give the type string. Then we need to add attribute derive deserialize from 30. So we can deserialize JSON to its to-do request struct type value. Let's define a sync function to connect to Sqlite database. So we will define function. Let's give the name db. Returning type will be database connection imported from CRM. In this function, let's create a variable, give it a name con equal to, we will call database connector. Then we'll pass a connector string because we will connect to Sqlite database. So it will start with Sqlite colon / then the database file's name db.sqlite. Let's create this db.sqlite file in our project directory. So here, let's create a new file, db.sqlite. This connect function is a sync function. Then let's call wait to handle the filter and unwrap to handle the result. Let's get the database backend from this connection. So let's create a variable db back and equal to con.get database backend. Then let's create a statement we will call statement CRUD from string. First argument will pass this DB backend, then we'll write a SQL statement to create a table for to do. So create a table if not exists to do's. This table name to do's will be the same as this table name to do's. Then let's add a field ID. Type will be integer. Primary key. Let's also add a auto increment. So we don't need to insert a value for this ID field. Second field content. Type we give it a text. Let's add this pair of parentheses. Here, let's add a semicolon. Then let's execute this statement. We will call count.execute. We pass this statement as argument. Then we need to call await to handle the future and unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's return this database connection con. Let's define our first handler to get all the to-do items from database. So we will define a sync function. Let's give the name get a to-do list. We will add a parameter to get the database connection from shared state. So it will be state import from Axum extract state. In its data, we will give the name con for the database connection. Then its type will be state. In its data, the type will be database connection. Its handler return type, we give it a IMPL into response. To find the to-do items from database, we will use to-do entity. So we will import a to-do entity from this to-do.rs file. So use to-do entity. Let's give it a new name as to-do entity. Then in its handler, let's create a variable, give the name to-dos equal to, we will call to-do entity find method. Then we will call all to find all the to-do items. We will pass a database connection as argument. So ref con. Then we need to call await to handle the future, and unwrap to handle the result. This to-do items is a vector contains to-do model. Then we need to serialize these to-do items to JSON. So let's create a variable to-dos JSON equal to, we'll call 30 JSON to string pretty. Then we'll pass a reference is to-dos as argument. Then we will call unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's send a response. Status code OK. Then this to-do JSON. Let's create a second handler to add a new to-do item to the database. Let's define a sync function, a sync hyphen. Let's give the name add to do. It will take a parameter to get the database connection. So state con state database connection. We will add a second parameter to get the to do content from request body. It will be JSON. In JSON, let's give the name to do request. Its type will be JSON to do request struct type. We define here. Return type, we will also give it a IMPL into response. To create a new to-do item, we will use active model from this to-do.rs file. So let's import a active model from this file. So use to-do active model. Let's give it a new name, to-do active model. Then let's create an instance of this to-do active model. So let's create a variable to-do equal to do active model. Then content field will get a value from this JSON to do request. So we will call active value set function to set the value to this content field. Then we'll pass a to-do request content. Then let's call default function to add the default value for this instance. Then let's insert this to-do to the database. We'll call to-do the insert. We'll pass a database connection as argument, so ref_con. Then let's call await to handle the future and unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's send a response status code OK. Let's send a string value add new to-do. Let's create a third handler to get the to-do item by ID. So let's define a sync function. Let's give it a name, get a single to-do. We'll add a parameter to get the database connection. So state con. We'll add a second parameter to get the ID's value from dynamic segment in root path. So it will be path. In this path, let's give it a name ID. Type will be path. In this path, let's give it an integer type i32. Return type, we will give it a impl into response. Let's create a variable, give it a name to-do option equal to, we will call to-do entity find by ID method, then we'll pass a ID as argument. So ID, then we will call one method, only find one. We'll pass a ref_con as argument, then let's call await to handle the future and unwrap to handle the result. So it will return an option hold the model. Let's use match expression to handle this option, to-do option. If we find this to-do item by this ID, we get from dynamic segment in root path, it will be sum hold that to-do item to-do. So first time we'll give it a pattern sum. Then let's serialize this to-do items to JSON. So let to-do JSON equal to 30 JSON to string pretty ref to-do the unwrap. Let's send a HTTP response status code OK to-do JSON. If we didn't find the to-do item by this ID, then this to-do option will be a null. Second arm, we give it a pattern null. Let's format our message. Let our message equal to format micro to-do ID. This ID not found. Then let's send a response status code not found with this message msg. Let's define false handler to delete a specific to-do by the ID. This handler most part will similar to this handler, so let's copy this, get a single to-do handler, and paste it here. Let's change its name to delete to-do. It will take two parameters. First one will get the database connection. Second one will get the ID from dynamic segment from root path. Its return type will be impl into response. First, we need to find that to-do item from database by its ID. We use match expression to handle this option. If we find that to-do item, first part is sum. In this let's delete that to-do item from database. So we will call to-do the delete method. Then we'll pass a reference con as argument. Then await. Then unwrap. Let's send a response status code OK. And delete to do the to string. Second arm, if we didn't find that to do item, we just send a message to do ID not found. Let's define our last handler to update to do item. Most part of that handler will be similar to this delete to do handler. So let's copy this delete to do handler. Let's change its name to update to do. First parameter will get the database connection. Second parameter will get the ID from dynamic segment in root path. Let's add a third parameter to get the new content from request body. So it will be JSON to do request, type JSON to do request. First in handler, we try to find that to do item by this ID we get from root path. Then we use match expression to handle this option. If we find that to do item is first arm, let's update that to do item. First, we need to convert this to do item from model to active model. So let's create a variable. We will add a mute keyword so we can mutate this to do. So to do equal to do into active model. Then let's update content. So to do the content equal to active value site to do request the content. We will update to the database. So to do the update ref con the await the wrapper. Here content. Then let's send a response. Status code OK. Update to do. Let's define a function to create a router. So let's define a single function. Let's give it a name app. Return type will be router imported from Axum. In this function, let's first get the database connection. So let's create a variable, give the name con equal to, we'll call db function. Then we'll call await to handle the filter to get the database connection. Then let's create a new router new function. We will call root method. Let's give it a pass slash to do list. Then let's add a request method will be get we import from Axum. Then we'll pass a handler get to do list. Let's remove this pair of parentheses. Let's add a second root. Let's add a pass add to do request method. We'll give it a post. We'll add a handler add to do. Let's remove this pair of parentheses. Let's add a third root. Let's give it a pass slash to do slash. Then we'll add a dynamic segment, a pair of curly brackets. In this pair of curly brackets, let's add a variable, give it a name ID. So this ID will be dynamic segment, can capture dynamic value. We'll give it a request method get. Then we pass a handler get a single to do. Let's remove this pair of parentheses. Let's add a fourth root. Let's give it a pass slash delete to do. Let's add a dynamic segment ID. We give it a request method delete. Then we pass handler delete to do. Let's add a last root. Let's give it a pass update to do slash dynamic segment ID. We give it a request method put. Then we pass handler update to do. Let's remove this pair of parentheses. Last, we will call method with state to share its database connection in its router. So we'll pass con in its with state method. Last, let's go to main function. First, we need to add attribute tokyo main. So we can turn this main function as a sync function. Let's add a sync keyword for this main function. Then in its main function, let's first get the router. Let's create a variable, give it the name app equal to, we will call app function, then wait to get the router from its app function. Then let's create a listener equal to, we will call Tokyo night TCP listener. bound function. Then we'll bound the address this listener will listen on. We give it address 0.0.0 port 3000. So this listener will listen on localhost 3000. Then we need to call await to handle the filter and unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's serve this app and the listener in Axum. So Axum serve function. First argument will pass this listener. Second argument will pass this app. Then we need to call await to handle the filter and wrap to handle the result. Let's start our server. In terminal, let's run cargo run. Then let's use postman to test our API. First, let's visit localhost 3000/to-do list. Request method is get. Let's send this request. We'll get an empty vector because currently there are no to-do items in the database. Let's open a new tab. We'll visit localhost 3000/add to-do to add the to-do item to the database. We'll change the request method to post. Here we choose the body, row, JSON. Let's add a field content, work. Then let's send this post request. We get a response, add a new to-do. Let's add another to-do item, run. Let's send this request, add a new to-do. Let's go back to first tab to get the to-do list. Let's send this request. We'll get a vector contains 2 to-do items. Let's open a new tab. We'll visit localhost 3000/to-do/. Then let's try to get the first to-do item ID is 1. I send this request, we'll get the first to-do item. Let's get the second to-do item ID is 2. I send this request, we'll get a second to-do item. Let's try to get the to-do item not in the database like ID 3. We'll get a to-do ID 3 not found. Let's open a new tab. Let's visit localhost 3000/delete to-do/. Let's try to delete our first to-do. ID is 1. Let's change request method to delete. Let's send this request. We will get a response, delete to-do. Let's go back to the first tab to get the to-do list. Let's send this request. This to-do list will only contains one to-do item. ID is 2, because the first to-do item we delete from database. Let's open a new tab. Let's visit localhost 3000/update to-do/. Let's update second to-do item. ID is 2. Request method we will change to put. Here body, row, JSON, content. Let's add content, drink water. Let's send this request. We get a response, update to do. Let's go back to the first tab. Let's send a request to get the to-do list. You can see second to-do item content change to drink water. This is how we use Axum, Sqlite database, and CRUD to create a basic API. Hope see you next time.